church over. See, what we would do a lot of times is when we would contact the church, we would already have our date scheduled that week. So when we call the larger churches, they're already booked up for a year in advance. So every time we call, they're booked up. Can't make it. We understand that. We're sensitive. So we learned a little something. What we decided to do is we're just going to designate the whole month of September. You call us and tell us when you can come. And I phoned the office there, and I left word with the secretary that we would like for your pastor to come and bring the choir. And you know, I struggle with rejection. That's my biggest problem. And so I was looking forward to hearing that you can't make it again. And I'll try next year, you know. But to my amazement, the secretary responded and said, Pastor Clark Whitten would love to come. I got on the phone, I said, you all won't believe this. Pastor Clark Whitten from Calvary Assembly has agreed to come to Freedom Assembly. They said, you're lying. No way. I said, really? He agreed. I said, is the secretary? I said, just pray that he don't cancel. I said, pray that something doesn't come up. You know, a lot of times things come up. Come on, let's get real here. A lot of times things happen, and well, you know, who gets cut? But I tell you what, I am so delighted to have you all with us, to celebrate with us. And it's long overdue for you all to be with us. And we are just elated at the fact that you have chosen this night to be with us on our celebration. And I want to bring to you a fine man of God, which I know you already know. But a fine man, we watch his ministry, we appreciate his ministry so very much, and his love for the Lord, and what he does for the community. I watch men of God. I watch those that pastor big sanctuaries, because I'm going to pastor a big sanctuary. So I watch those individuals and how they treat people and how they respond and how they act. And this brother is really humble. Anything he can do for the community. You know, cocky preachers are not needed in the kingdom of God. Well, I didn't mean to preach a little bit here, but without further ado, let me bring to you this fine man of God that I believe has a word for us. Our theme that we have designated for this is pressing towards the mark. And I believe tonight our brother has a message from God for us. So tonight, why don't we welcome this precious man of God with a Freedom Assembly of God welcome, Reverend Clark Whitten. Let's welcome him to Freedom Assembly.
I can see that Pastor Randall has already mastered one of the preacher's arts in his years, and that's overstatement. You're not really lying, you're just exaggerating for emphasis. That's the deal. How many did you have today in your church, Pastor? Oh, I don't know, I had about 1,000. And we didn't get any better offers than yours, so we took yours. No, I really heard. I didn't know about Freedom Assembly. I mean, obviously I'd met you and heard about the church, but I didn't know the connection it had with Calvary until Ken Fleming was telling me one day about the origins of the church and how it started and his part in that, and how Calvary had supported the church and had a part in its founding. And I didn't know until tonight that it was the very first black Assembly of God church in the state of Florida. I had no idea about that. I don't know a whole lot about the assembly organization itself, but that seems almost incredible. You know, that just 16 years ago, that was first done. But thank God for it. And you know, one of the things that I truly believe is, I'm not the first one that said this, obviously, there's others who thought this up, but I think it's the truth, that you can tell the measure of a person by what it takes to make them quit. And I can tell you, I guarantee you that pastoring a church that has gone through what this one has gone through in its history for the past 9 years would make anybody quit. It really would. I mean, most people have no idea what that feels like. I mean, to watch so many things that you think are from God die. I mean, really, you're doing the best you know how, you think you've heard from God, you try something, it sounds like it's a good idea, the Lord ought to bless it, there's no reason for it to not be blessed, and then it just dies. And you question your own walk before God, you question whether or not you've heard from the Lord, you question whether or not you're called of God, you question everything. You blame it on your wife or the dog. And it really is difficult not to quit in seasons of time like that. It really is. And not only not to quit, but to keep your sense of humor and your willingness to keep going and reaffirm that call of God in your life. It really is very, very much of a challenge. And I admire people like that very much. And I feel like one of the strengths of my own life is that I just keep playing the game until I win. You know, we're not gonna quit until we win. So I just want to do a little bit for all of you. I believe that the most important thing that we can do in the season and the hour of time in which we live is for the church to begin to receive the fullness of what Jesus died to give us. And I realize that a lot of us feel like we know a lot about that, but I don't think we do. I really don't. That Jesus, what He did for us and what the Father did for us in the sacrifice of Christ on the cross is so unbelievable until it's too good to be true. It's simply too good to be true. And I found out that most people have a hard time receiving from God all that Jesus died to give, because they get to thinking that this is just too good to be true. It can't be this good, and it can't be this easy. Well, I can tell you for sure that according to God's Word, it is that good, and it is that easy. Walking with God isn't hard. I'm not saying life isn't hard. Life can be hard. But walking with God isn't hard. And so I want to just show you a couple of things, and just from observation, I won't take long, but from Hebrews chapter 6, if you'll turn over there for just a moment. Just a few things to hang your hats on and that will help you in the future. Look in verse 13. We'll just start there. Now this is an account of Abraham and God having a meeting, essentially. It's the introduction of the Abrahamic covenant, the covenant that God made with Abraham. I'll show that to you. Look in verse 13. It says, "For when God made the promise to Abraham, since He could swear by no one greater, He swore by Himself, saying, I will surely bless you and I'll surely multiply you. And thus having patiently waited, He obtained the promise. For men swear by one greater than themselves, and with them an oath given as confirmation is the end of every dispute." Now look up here a second. Essentially this says this. The Lord comes to Abraham, calls Abraham up, and He says, Abraham, I want to have a meeting with you. Okay? Abraham says, okay. And Abraham is pre-Moses, before the law was given. You understand that. And essentially, Abraham's life is not molded by the requirements of the law.
Right.
And he is essentially like everybody else. Abraham's essentially a heathen living in the midst of heathen nations. Now, why is that? Because the nation of God had not been born yet. Abraham was the beginning of the nation of God. So he looked and acted, by and large, like those around him.
Right.
So the Lord, and he doesn't know much about God, he knows some things, but God comes to him, and when he starts hearing from God, he's not going to be all that excited about meeting with this God that he's heard about and knows a little bit about. But God comes to Abraham, and he says, Abraham, I want to promise you something. He says, I want to make a covenant with you, or a contract with you. And he says, you know the nature of a contract. That men swear by one greater than themselves, an oath is given, and that confirms the covenant that we'll be making together. The Lord comes to Abraham and he says, Abraham, I want to swear to you something. I want to enter into a covenant relationship with you, and I want to swear something. Now, on my way over here, I was looking for someone greater than I am on which to swear to validate this covenant, and I couldn't find anybody. So, if it's all right with you, I'll just swear on my own name. Okay? Now, if God came to you and wanted to swear on his own name, that'd be all right with you. So the Lord comes to Abraham. He walks up to him and he says, Abraham, I swear to you, on my own name, that the only motive and reason I'm coming to you is to bless you and multiply you. Now, contrary to what you might have thought I was coming to do, that's my purpose in coming. You may have thought I'm coming to wipe you out, to clean your clock, to hurt you, to put you under, or whatever. But I promise you that the reason I'm coming to you is to bless you and multiply you. Swear to it. Those are the two motives. Now let's keep that in your mind. Let's read in verse 17. It says, in the same way, God, desiring even more to show to the heirs of the promise the unchangeableness of his purpose, interposed with an oath. It says, in the same way, God, in other words, in like manner as it happened before, it's happening again. In the same way, God. Now what do you think he meant? What does it mean when it says that? In the same way, God. Let me quote it for you, translate it for you from the Greek. It means in the same way, God. That's what it means. It means just like it happened before, it's happening again. So it's in like manner. It's important you see that. It's easy for you to see God coming to Abraham, but it's not easy for you to see God coming to you. That's what I'm saying to you. In the same way, God, desiring even more than he desired to do whatever he did with Abraham, he desires to do to you. In the same way, God desiring even more to show to the heirs of the promise. Now, who is that? Who are the heirs of the promise? That's all of us in Jesus, right? In the same way, God, desiring even more to show to the heirs of the promise the unchangeableness of his purpose, interposed with an oath, in order that by two unchangeable things in which it is impossible for God to lie, we may have strong encouragement. We have fled for refuge and laying hold of the hope set before us. This hope we have is an anchor of the soul, a hope both sure and steadfast, and one which enters within the veil, where Jesus is entered as a forerunner for us, having become a high priest forever, according to the order of Melchizedek. Now, quickly, let me show you some of what he's saying here. Oh, Celeste, right? Isn't that your first name? Now, you remember that God came to Abraham and he said, I swear to you, I swear on my own name, that the reason I've come to you is to bless you and multiply you. In the same way, God, desiring even more to show to the heirs of the promise the unchangeableness of his purpose, swore an oath by two unchangeable things in which it is impossible for God to lie. We may have some stuff. God comes to Celeste in a very personal way. Each one of us, individually and personally, the Lord has come to us in Jesus. Do you understand that? That he did, but he didn't. He did die for us, but more personally, Jesus died for me. You understand that? He saw us all as being valuable enough to sacrifice his son, yes. But he saw me in that same way. So God comes to Celeste. And it's like he raises his right hand and he's swearing to you, Celeste. I don't know you. I don't know anything about you. I'm just using her because she's sitting here, all right? And I remember her name. He comes to Celeste and he says, Celeste, given your background, given your religious upbringing, given the things you've been through or not been through, it may be hard for you to believe this. But I want to swear to you, Celeste. I swear on my own name that the only reason I've come to you is to bless you.